Good evening, I'm Simone Malone.
And I am Eunice Smith. Issues of gun violence, regentrification, and the opioid epidemic plaguing the city has spawned a resurgence in Philadelphia's political climate.
But with so many people running for office, deciding who will best serve the city can be a lengthy and arduous task, leading many to vote for the same old, or not to vote at all.
Today, we give voters an opportunity to get up close and personal with some of the candidates stumping for their votes.
This is Like It Is.
What we see around us, we don't believe that because we want to buy into standards.
We have to prove that we're good fathers. When, as far as the mothers, it's just assumed.
So I'll wait on the check. I'll keep my self-respect first.
I'm a black man trying to save a black man, and I noticed as I looked around the whole room, there's no one helping me.
The reality is, if it affects you, it affects me.
Welcome back. The city of Philadelphia's primary elections are just around the corner, and all residents are encouraged to get out and vote. So Like It Is, the award-winning talk show, offering people a voice, is giving its audience the chance to vet the candidates. With us today are three amazing people vying your vote. Please, will you introduce yourself and welcome to Like It Is.
Hello, my name is Theresa Brunson, and I'm running for Judge of Municipal Court.
Welcome.
Hello, my name is Rochelle Bilal, and I'm running to be your first woman sheriff ever elected in the city of Philadelphia.
Hello, my name is Dennis Lee, and I'm running for City Commissioner.
And once again, we welcome you to Like It Is.
Thank you for having us.
My first question is to Mr. Lee, who is running for City Commissioner. Can you please explain, because a lot of people don't know this, what is the role of the City Commissioner?
The City Commissioner's office is responsible for free and fair elections and making sure that your voter registration is up to date, as well as should be voter education, voter registration, and voter participation. But primarily the role of the City Commissioner's office is to make sure that elections happen in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mr. Lee, there has been a lot of times, and there has been improvements with people going out to vote, as you know.
Yes.
But what areas do we need improvement on to get more voters out to cast their vote so they can make a difference in these elections?
Well, first of all, we have to make sure that those that do not know that they're able to vote, like returning citizens, we have to do more voter education so that those populations that have barriers can have access to the polls. That will increase. We have to put voter education back into the schools. Civic education will stem on the long term of voter participation. So we have to do a couple of those things to stimulate more voter participation.
So what is your primary goal if you become City Commissioner of this city of Philadelphia?
My primary goal is to have, there's three goals. One is to make sure that we do something with voter education. Mm-hmm. Not do something, we need to do more of voter education. We have to do more of voter registration, making sure that we're updating the voter files in a timely manner so that everyone is eligible to vote. Then with voter participation, we have to review every election and let each and every citizen through town hall meetings know how they voted, and we need to take a good look at ourselves to see how we can improve that voter experience.
Wonderful. I want to move to the sheriff's position because that's such a vital role in this city. Can you please, Ms. Rochelle, explain to us what the sheriff's role is in this city?
The sheriff's role in this city has a multitude of things that they do. One of the things that is crucial is they're dealing with the sheriff's sales, which is selling people homes from foreclosure, tax liens, tax sales. Mm-hmm. They also transport prisoners from the prisons to the courthouses. They also secure all the courthouses in the city to keep people safe coming in and out of the courthouses. But the sheriff's office can do a lot more than just that. I'm running to keep families in their homes, not bragging about taking people's homes. I'm running to make sure that we develop programs to keep families in their homes. It's been 2 decades of scandal in the sheriff's office, 2 decades. And everybody that's running has worked in the sheriff's office except me. So I'm running to be the fresh face, new ideas, new programs, and to help keep families in their homes.
What type of program can you implement that will help to keep these residents in their homes because they're losing them?
Most of the time when families go through foreclosure tax sales, they get depressed, they go home, they go in, they shut the door, and they don't reach out for the programs that are already out there. And so with our administration, we're going to make sure that we reach out to all the communities. If you are going through that situation and you don't know about the programs, then we're going to reach out and come to your house to let you know, walk you through the process to help you save your home. Because right now they don't know. Few people may know, but most people don't. And then when you're depressed, you don't reach out. So our job is to reach out to the community. The sheriff's office has failed in its communication to everybody. And we're going to communicate with the whole city. So if you ever go through that process, we're going to do that.
Right.
Other programs is basically working on with the city council, state legislators, and the judicial courts on coming up with a program that puts money into a program on helping families stay in their homes.
Yeah, and you know that takes a great team of people.
Oh, yes.
So do you plan on hiring a great team of people if you become sheriff that will definitely move forward for this type of program?
Definitely, because they don't have one now. So we will hire a czar, one to look over that sheriff's cell, because that's when the most scandals have been coming out about the sheriff's office and what they do with that. And people in my office to be to reach out. Reach out when these court orders come down, reach out to the families, make sure they know what the alternative into losing their home. Make sure they know about the programs to help them save their homes.
Another question I want to ask you, in most cases, people that are losing their homes, what would you consider to be the most reason? And we do know that people lose their jobs, income, things of that nature. And there should be programs to help these people who have been homeowners before. But what do you find to be the biggest reason that people are losing their homes before they can reach out for the help?
Predatory loans. When they come through your neighborhood and they want to offer you this loan, we want to refinance your house for you. We're going to give you this money. And people take that. They don't read the fine print, because at the end of that loan, it's a balloon payment of $50,000,
Wow.
which you know you do not have. And there goes the foreclosure on your home.
Wow.
Income, which is money, you lose your job, you don't have any money to pay for your mortgage anymore, the bank comes back in and snatches it. Then you got these jackleg people going around the city wanting to buy your home from you. So there are a whole lot of things going on because real estate in the city is hot right now. And so there's a lot of things going on. Income and the predatory. We're going to make sure that those loans that people have on their homes and they're foreclosing on aren't predatory, because if they are, there are things that we'll be able to do about it.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Let's move over to an area that so many people are concerned about, the judicial system.
Yes.
Once again, tell everybody your name.
Theresa Brunson,
And you are running for what position?
municipal court judge.
Can you tell us the role of your position?
Yes. The municipal court judge sits in municipal court, which is the lower court here in Philadelphia. And it's the court where I would deal with minor misdemeanor crimes. So we hold trials there. There are also felony preliminary hearings. Municipal court judges preside over those. Also landlord-tenant court. Also municipal court, where people have problems with their water bills when the city brings them into court to answer why they haven't paid their water bills.
Okay. And what do you plan to do if you are elected to this position as a judge?
What I am going to do is treat people with respect. I believe that a judge in municipal court and in any court should be 4 things. They should be, number one, prepared to preside over the case that they're hearing. They should know the law, and they should know how to apply the law to the facts of the case and make a decision. They should be polite and professional. To anyone who comes into the courtroom and stands before them, they should always maintain the proper decorum for a judge, and they should be very much trying to move cases along, so they should be productive and not hold up the court's business because they get bogged down with one case because they can't understand what's going on. You have to keep the cases moving, because in the municipal court, you usually have about 50 to 100 cases on one list. And you have to make sure that the morning list does not run into the afternoon list and have people sitting there all day. It's just unproductive. And I would do those 4 things as a municipal court judge.
I want to ask you, how can we deal with these individuals that come to the court that are on probation? We have a lot of people on probation.
Yes.
And it affects their ability based on what has happened in their past to be able to get job opportunities because they have a record. What will you do to help that when people come to your courtroom? Because some of the stuff that people come to the court for, it could have been thrown out.
Right.
But they have it going through the system, tying up our tax dollars and things of that nature. What can you do to make a difference in that?
Well, I know that as a new judge sitting, sometimes you have to inherit the probation list of prior judges who have left the court or who have moved on to the higher court. But what I would do would be to look at the particular situation of the individual who was in front of me. And I would not just use a system that's been in place for so long and nobody knows why. I would look at the person, see if they are keeping up with their probation, and if they've met all the requirements, I would cut them loose, because there's no need to keep someone on probation for 10 or 15 years after they have done a minor crime for which they could probably have only served 6 months incarceration at the most. It's not productive. It's also something that is a burden on our budget here in Philadelphia, that we need to really look at that, and all judges need to look at the probation situation here, because they're keeping people on probation too long, and it's not a productive way for the person to move forward in life and try to get a family and get a job and to be a productive member of society.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. I want to move to homelessness and poverty, which is very big. Yes. I meet with a lot of people that are homeless. I meet with a lot of people that are just below the poverty level. Right. And either of you can answer this question. How will you address the homeless and poverty issues in this city?
The last thing people want to do that are in poverty is voting. They're trying to feed themselves. So I think we have to take that in consideration when it comes to the city commissioner's office, and partner with different organizations, collaborate with them to, when they get to that level where they can really receive the information that they need to receive. But the first thing is to fill their need, because they need to eat.
Yeah.
That's a barrier. It's a barrier for folk to be able to vote. And if you live in America, and democracy demands that everyone has an opportunity for their voice to be heard. How is their voice heard? Through voting. So we definitely would partner with organizations like Project Home that work with the homeless to make sure that everyone's registered. And we would do everything to work with other city agencies to make sure that holistically they are taken care of.
Sheriff, would you like to chime in on that question of how you would address and deal with the homeless and poverty levels in this city?
Let's say poverty altogether.
Yes, ma'am.
There's 26% of poverty. People live in poverty in the city. And whether they're homeless or barely losing their home or barely even paying their bills, we need to work together as all officials, elected officials, to combat that problem, because it hasn't increased, it hasn't decreased. So that's the urgency. So all the city agencies, whether it's city council, state legislators, judicial courts, we need to come together on dealing with poverty in this city altogether. Now, if the sheriff's office somehow can come up with this program on homes in our neighborhood, so we keep the neighborhoods whole, where some of those houses be renovated for those people who are homeless, so they can have a home, that would be great. But that would take working with city council, state legislatures, and the judicial courts. So we're looking at those programs to help keep people in their homes.
Gotcha. Because, Sheriff, I want to say, with the poverty level being like it is, and so many people that I meet, they want to have an opportunity, but they can't seem to get out of their situation. That's where a lot of the crime begins to happen. That's why the judicial system is so important, with having programs in place, because these people want a way out.
Right.
But they can't get a way out because they're living beneath their means. So therefore they end up, because they can't get job opportunities, our young people or some of the adults or whoever it is, they end up getting themselves involved with drugs, and doing all these other, crazy things that they end up getting arrested for, and then they end up having a record and end up in your courtroom.
Yes.
We want to be able to decrease this.
Yes.
So if that happens, and the poverty level is constantly increasing because there are not opportunities for the people, the judicial system is going to be off the roof like it is now.
Yes.
How can we bring that down?
Well, I think one thing that the city needs to look at is services that they have that are lifting people out of poverty. And we've been talking about it in the city for a long time. I did have the opportunity to work on city council in my prior in my career. And that was always a big issue, but no one seemed to have the solution. And I do know this also. The number one group of people who are homeless and living in poverty and getting evicted from their housing are African American women with children.
Wow.
And I believe that as a municipal court judge who presides over landlord-tenant court, it becomes a problem because what they do now is they allow the landlord's attorney to cut deals with the tenants in the courthouse. And it just causes so many problems because the tenants will agree to anything to stay in their house. But what the judge needs to do is to look at it and try to make them reach a deal that's going to be fair to the tenant and also fair to the landlord without a person having to be evicted out of their home.
Okay, very good.
Like It Is, we'll be right back. Like It Is back. We have an audience question. Please tell us your name.
Yes, my name is Brother Frederick Tooks. I'm a community businessman and activist. And the MC did a great job at talking about integrity of the candidates that are running. And my question, this question would be basically to all of them, but to the sheriff that's running. We have the developers in the city that is coming into the Philadelphia with these suitcases of money. And I want to know how she's going to deal with these developers, these greedy developers that are looking to come into the city and just take properties. And I must say there must be some revamping, the revamping of the sheriff, the whole program of the sheriff system. So I just want to know how she's going to handle the developers and those individuals that's coming to the city with these big suitcases of money that can really care less about the community and really care less about people losing their homes. We got to have integrity. I agree with that. But how is the sheriff going to handle that?
We're going to handle it this way. Integrity, transparency, and compassion. We know the developers are coming in here taking over our city. We know that. So I'm going to work with the mega churches, different organizations to come together and start keeping our communities whole. By working with them, let them come in, put their pool of money together to buy these properties. If they have to be foreclosed on, let y'all come together so these properties can be kept in the neighborhood. See, we go down as individuals, but the developers go in as groups. They pull their money together, and so they overpower the average person out there trying to buy these properties up. So let's empower the churches, community organizations, those RCOs, to pull their money together to come in and purchase these properties so that they can keep people in the neighborhood and keep the neighborhood whole. Those are the things that need to be changed in there. We need to stop letting people bully us in the sheriff's office. We need to stop being a bully for the banks. We need to focus on keeping communities whole and not to gentrifying our areas as much as they do today.
I have another question. As a business professional, okay, I appreciate everyone's responses, but there's a piece that I'm not hearing when we have these discussions. You mentioned, Sheriff, you mentioned depression, all right, which is a very serious issue. Along with depression, there's also PTSD that we don't address, all right, that's very critical in the Black community. Okay. The other part to that is financial literacy. All right. And that's what a lot of people are not tackling. At least I have yet to hear it being addressed. Financial literacy, financial education. But a lot of people who are losing their homes just simply aren't educated. They don't know what they don't know. Right. So as you stated, there are resources there, but they don't know. And then when you do go into that depression, it's embarrassing, to even step out and want to, put your business out there. It's a lot of factors, a lot of layers to it, right? So with that, I have, and I'll just give my personal, scenario, for example. I was blessed to buy my first house when I was young, okay, at 19, all right? Now, I'm familiar with I'm in the legal field, okay? So I'm familiar with everything that we've already discussed there, even the developing part of it, because I myself am actually making plans to progress to partner, with people to be developers. So I'm looking at this from a lot of different angles, okay? Coming from my family, from West Philadelphia, and blessed to be where I am now. But my first loan, I had it was an adjustable rate, and and I had to pay back a very large sum when I paid that loan off early, right? Guess what? Financial literacy, financial education is what prevented me from understanding that when I got into it. Okay? Granted, I was young, but I still didn't know. I learned from that experience. And so my whole point is that what is the city planning to do to implement programs for people to be able to understand credit? Because that's a part of the problem. People don't even know how credit works. They don't understand how money works. They don't understand interest rates. They don't understand compounded interest. They don't understand a whole lot of things of just how it works, and then that leads to the depression. So I just think that, maybe perhaps those are some programs, I guess I'm suggesting, if it's not already, being put in place. Those are some things that could be implemented for people to educate them, to then also turn into, becoming investors themselves, to buy back the community, to keep the people out, the developers out, to at least be homeowners, for one. And then the other thing I want to talk about is, we know so many of our parents, grandparents have passed on, left that family house, right, to their children, and that house gets sold and lost for taxes. The house is owned free and clear outright, but the financial education piece that is missing is what leads to the home being lost to taxes. And so with that, I just think that that's really the solution, or at least a part of the solution, understanding that, because without that, then we are in this victim mentality, that this is what's happening, to me, or what's happening to us. But we're in control of, our finances and our legacy. It's just, it's in the books that we're not opening up.
Well, you're right. And maybe you need to be sitting up here running for office. Because financial literacy is a must. And there are programs, there's a city council person running who has a financial literacy program that they are even teaching teachers to teach it in school. From the Guardian Civically, we have a summer enrichment program we do every year from the ages of 7 through 12. We bring in teachers and program directors. We have the STEM program, but we also teach them financial literacy too. We caught on to that a couple of years ago, starting at the younger age. Matter of fact, they all started their bank account, and they all started looking at what they're going to invest in. So that's very important. So if they are at the crucial stage and their house being foreclosed on, we want to get them out of that depression first. Get them on an even keel that we saved your home. Now, let's teach you about financial literacy so you don't get back into this again. So you're right, financial literacy should be the #1 thing taught in our neighborhoods, in our schools. So I might have to bring you on staff.
Can I jump in there too?
Sure.
Because the financial literacy is a portion of it, right? Now, when we were growing up, the bank, opening up a bank account and doing all those things.
PFFS.
Yes. Right. That's what we used to do, right? But let's look at America. America, there's 2 major systems in America: economics, democracy/politics. We have to go back to the basics. And going back to the basics, because this thing has to happen on all levels. It's got to start in daycare all the way up to high school. It's got to start in college. right? And it's got to be real intense with adults. So we cannot separate the two, because if you learn the economics and you don't learn the democracy side of it, right, you're still behind the bus. So we got to make sure that people get it, that listen, there's two systems that our youth should be learning, right? Economics, something you talk about, financial literacy, right? It's not in the schools. It is not in the schools. It's not in college, because in college they get credit cards. They get credit cards sent to them, and they think that, oh, this is great. So they get 10 credit cards sent to them, and they open up those credit cards, right? And they start. And they're already behind the 8 ball. So whenever we're having this conversation, I don't want to ever take democracy off the agenda. Right. Because right now, what's causing a good educated voter is good for business. It's good for business, because they are the ones that's going to advocate in the city council, in the state legislature, for those things that the businesses need. I just wanted to make sure.
And if I may jump in on this about the tangled title issue, that has been an issue in our city for decades. Whenever someone passes away and the house is in their name, unfortunately, sometimes the family doesn't know that they'd have to get the deed changed into the name of whoever it was left to, or whoever the heirs are. And what the city does to add to the problem is they'll keep taking tax money from whoever comes down there and says, I want to pay on this property. And it causes problems when someone stops paying. And as you said, house falls into high taxes, and then it's sold at a tax lien sale or tax sale with all that equity in it that the family loses out on. So there should be a way for the city to monitor these things, and maybe after a year after the person passes away, at least send a notice to the family that you should be looking into changing the name into whoever the next rightful owner is, because these things can happen. If somebody just forgets to make the payments, the house will be lost to a tax sale.
Thank you. Thank you. And you actually mentioned something that I knew those questions were going to come after. You mentioned something, though. You just said equity, right? That is so critical because a lot of people still don't understand. That goes back to the financial literacy piece. They don't even understand and know what equity is.
True.
To be able to understand how to leverage the equity that we, build in our homes, to watch the market even, and know how to use that equity to, to establish businesses in order to rebuild our community, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do, right? So thank you. I appreciate, those questions being answered. Thank you.
My name is Dr. John Taylor. I'm a Philadelphia educator. I teach special education here in the city. One thing, kind of switching up a little bit from the equity conversation. One thing concerns me is the incarceration of our youth. As an educator, it kind of burdens my heart to see the kids go to jail. You don't see them no more. They receive juvenile life. Juvenile life is when a kid could get incarcerated at 12. You don't see this kid again until like they're 20, 21 years old, and they're done by that time. Last year, this United States Supreme Court found that juvenile life was cruel and not fair.
Yes.
But just in this city alone, as I can bear witness, I've seen a lot of that happen. And my question is to the judge, what are you prepared to do to handle those type of situations when kids are coming in and they're receiving these heavy sentences? Or how could you help them before they get in a life sentence and their life is thrown away before they even get started?
Well, I know in juvenile court, they're looking at not adjudicating children when they come in for minor offenses, things of that nature, by deferring the adjudication and putting them in programs and providing services for the family, if need be, to keep the child from going out and reoffending and doing anything beyond whatever they did at that lower level. With regard to the Court of Common Pleas, if a child has committed an adult crime, what they consider an adult crime, murder, rape, aggravated assault with shooting, stabbing someone, there was a trend to charge them as an adult. I don't know if the DA's office is continuing that trend, but I understand what you're saying about the juvenile lifers. That is now something that's unconstitutional. The state of Pennsylvania, which I think had the highest rate of incarceration for juvenile lifers, they can no longer do it, and a lot of the people who did get life for juvenile crimes were released, and they're being considered for release because, as you said, the Supreme Court ruled it cruel and unusual punishment. If they were to come in front of my courtroom, if I was sitting as a common pleas judge, and I did see some of those cases, I would look at the family situation for the child, the environment that the child came from, and the past history of the child in acting out or doing whatever, to see whether or not there's something going on mentally that they might need treatment for, or if there's something in the home environment that the child is learning that has caused them to behave in this way. I don't think that it makes sense, and the Supreme Court has made that finding, to take a child who's done something at an early age and lock them up forever, or until they come out and they're in their 50s, and they can't really integrate themselves into society. It's very difficult. That's why I think that the judges who are going to be sitting in those courts looking at those cases should be well aware of more than just the child standing in front of them and a list of charges and a victim saying they did X, Y, and Z to me. They should look at the whole person and their environment that they're coming from, because that's where a lot of this is coming from. Their behavior is coming from the environment and the environment that they live in their household.
Like It Is, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Now what I want to talk about is, when you get in, staying the course. Are you for sale? Will I, as a trial observer down the road, have to be sitting in a courtroom watching you being escorted in as a trial observer? Will you stay the course and do the things that you promised from the beginning for the community, from beginning to end? I'm speaking now as a trial observer. They have said in some cases of some politicians, and it was a very sad situation.
Is that a judge question?
Well, I'll certainly answer it.
Were you getting ready to answer it?
Everybody's going to
Yeah, everybody can answer that question.
Well, for me, it's a little bit deeper than that. In 1996, my son was murdered. And I understand moments. Moments are very important. And tragedy happens, it kind of sets the tone of what you are committed to. So running for office is not running for office for myself. It's running to enable others and to help people. All my life I've helped people. So understanding the baseline of where you come from, right? That tragedy sent me on to a whole nother level of understanding a commitment, not only to yourself, because the higher you get up, the more people you take down when you go down. So with that kind of commitment, I definitely will keep my eye on the prize, work for the people, and make sure that what I am doing is accountable. And I need people to hold me accountable for what I'm saying. So I do not look good in orange. And I don't plan to be in orange. The only orange I wore was when I went to Overbrook High School and Lincoln University.
I've been me my entire life. Being the president of the Guardian Civic League, so I've fought against disparity in treatment in the law enforcement institutions. So therefore, I'm not scared. I stand up for what's right. And there's nobody back there that can buy me, because I know who controls my life other than any individual in this city, and they don't have enough money to bring to me to be able to even think that I would take it enough to get into an orange suit. I'm a retired police officer for 27 years. The one thing cops are scared of is jail. I'm not going to jail. So I will stay true to the mission, speak truth to power, do what is right for the people. That's why I'm running to be the people's sheriff.
Well, I know I started my career in 1994 in the legal profession, and I always vowed to myself and to anybody who would listen that there's nothing about a job, a case, a client, or anything involved in a courtroom that's going to make me lie, steal, cheat, or sell my integrity for any 5 pieces of silver. We've seen it in Philadelphia. We've seen the scandals with the judges going off and fixing cases. Never. I would never do that. I've never been disciplined by the Supreme Court, and I never plan to be disciplined by the Supreme Court. And I would stay true to my values that I learned as a small child. I'm not going to do it.
Philadelphia is set to be the first with a city-approved safe injection site. What is your stance on safe injection sites?
The city commissioner's office does not play a direct role in the safe injection sites. However, in my opinion as a citizen, it should be a ballot question where more Philadelphians can weigh in on whether we should have it or not.
Okay. Sure.
And I'm against safe injection sites.
Tell us why.
Because I don't think there's anything safe about shooting an illegal substance into your arm. You don't know what's in it. You don't know where it comes from. And if it's fentanyl, it's going to kill you. So I'm against safe injection sites. And I think it should be a ballot question so that every citizen can make have the right to vote whether they want these brick and mortar properties in the city. I'm against it. I think if they was going to do that, they should have did it a safe injection site for the crack cocaine. Why now? Why all of a sudden we're going to safely let other people use drugs and don't do it to anybody else? No. There are more people that go in treatment that are clean for 10 and 20 years than the amount of people they would save with a safe injection site.
Right.
Stats say they save 2% when 20, 25, 30% are clean when they go into treatment. I think they need to come up with more treatment places where people can go get clean and learn how to live with whatever troubles them to get into drugs, than to have them be able to just shoot up.
Okay. Let's talk about treatment real quick because I work in behavioral health as well. The key is to keep people in recovery so that they can rehabilitate themselves. Some of the experiences and things that I have witnessed being on the therapy side and clients that I see, they go in the city of Philadelphia, the behavioral health system pays thousands of dollars for these people to go into treatment. They do well in treatment because they're in a certain environment, but soon as they get out and they go to outpatient treatment and people follow that, they end up relapsing. And either you can talk about this, what can you do in your office to help people stay in recovery where they don't relapse like they do? There are good programs in the city of Philadelphia. I'm not knocking it, I work with some of them. But after they've been in facilities for 6 months, some a year, all that money spent to help rehabilitate them has gone to waste. What can we do to help that? Because if people are clean and in recovery, they can get their life back, they can get their family back, they can get things back in order again to be a more cooperative individual in society.
Yeah, to put them to work. You have to keep them in that environment of moving on and not constantly just going back. You put them back into the neighborhood, just like prison. You take them from the neighborhood, you incarcerate them, you give them nothing to rehabilitate them, then you drop them right back in the same neighborhood where everything's the same. You have to be able to give them jobs. You have to be able to help educate them so that they can go finish their education. You have to be able to help people in this city and not allow them to get back to rehab. I know a lot of people who went through treatment and they came back out here and they are doing excellent because you know what? They're helping other people stay in the treatment. So that's the way I think about doing it. It's helping everybody.
Judge, you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I think that it's something that the city, I know the city has to stop paying for their treatment at a certain point.
Exactly.
And if they're court ordered into the treatment, they have to continue with it until, I guess, the judge finds that they're rehabilitated. But we all know that addiction is a lifelong struggle.
Correct.
So I think the ones who do the best with it are the ones who go to the NA programs and they have other people around them who are encouraging them to stick with it and not relapse and things of that nature. I think that is more helpful when there's, more so than a program, I think that other people encouraging you is more helpful in keeping people on the straight and narrow.
Dennis, you want to say anything about that?
I don't want to confuse people about the city commissioner's office as much as they're confused already about what it does. So the city commissioner's office does not deal directly with the opioid situation or relapse or what have you, but from a perspective of making partnerships with different various departments to establish those temporary jobs that lead into full-time jobs.
Right.
I think that's something that I think all agencies have to start looking at that.
Could you state your name, please?
Hello, my name is Iris.
Okay. And your question is for whom?
It's for all the candidates. I've listened to what you said and you've shared some points about the city and the poverty level. And there's also an illiteracy level here in the city. As you've gone out campaigning, what has your engagement with the youth been like? Are the youth, the young people, excited about voting? And when you tell them about your office, what are the questions you get from young Philadelphians?
Well, thank you for that question. I was just at Park West North, in the Northwest, where we were giving a workshop on voting and why you should vote. And I talked about it. When I first talk to young people, the first thing I say, if it's the first time we're talking about voting, I need to apologize. Need to apologize because you should have gotten this earlier on. So you need to apologize. But then you break down, for me, you break down what I talked about earlier, the two systems in America. And the youth that I was talking to were from 16 to 18. And you have to get ready, because at 18, right, whether you are in the game will be on you. That game is economics, democracy / politics. And it hits them full front face. That financial literacy that we talked about, they are just waiting. The credit card companies are just waiting for them because we haven't prepared them. So part of it, asking them in terms of, are they excited? But they don't know what to be excited for because they've never had the conversation. You know, we tell people to register to vote at age 18, but we never had a conversation about how important voting is and how voting plays a major part in their life. You know what I talked to them about? I said to them, you know what, you're in the game and don't know it. Each one of you have a birth certificate. And unfortunately, each one of you will receive a death certificate. And that's real. That's the government. That's politics. That's democracy. And in between, a lot happens. So you got to understand the game. Economics, democracy / politics.
I've worked with youth. As the secretary of the NAACP Philadelphia chapter, I have over the youth council. And part of their civic engagement is voting and being educated on voting. And my daughters and my stepsons, we went through the process with them. Voting, first of all, when you start voting, you vote for who I say you need to vote for. Then you start educating yourself and vetting out the people who you think you need to vote for. But they've been voting since the age of 18 when they get their card. And now they're at the age where I don't have to tell them anymore who to vote for. They basically vet everybody that's coming in front of them and they make their votes. But so working around young people and encouraging them and educating them on what politics are, because it's a part of all their life. Everything that they do, there's politics. And so they're engaged. The ones that I talk to, they're ready.
Okay, and I have a 27 and a 23-year-old or 22-year-old children. And they are very engaged in what I'm doing on the campaign trail. They help me out a lot. I've been fortunate enough to meet with some very engaging young people on the campaign trail, a group called Millennials in Action PAC. And they are very, very active in today's political events, and they have services that you can purchase from them to do canvassing and phone banking, and they're very aware of what's going on politically, and they're very engaged in this election in particular.
Like It Is, we'll be right back.
My name is Arlen. My question is to all the candidates. What would be your main agenda the first 100 days in office?
Thank you.
Ladies
Main agenda, first 100 days in office. First of all, I would have to analyze all the departments in the sheriff's office. The second day, issue a policy called zero tolerance of sexual harassment and abuse of authority in my department. That's the second day. Letting them know there's a new sheriff in town. If you think you want to do that in here, you'll be gone. But analyze all the departments, look at where I need to put people in charge to make sure that the things that have been going on for decades don't continue to go on. Evaluate all the employees and find out what it is that they're good at and what it is that they're not good at, so that they can be at their best strength in working for the sheriff's office and not just doing something because somebody put them there. And then lay out my plan after 90 days as to how the sheriff's office will operate from that point forward.
ladies first.
I would look at the policies that are already in place in municipal court, and one thing I would try to do, and that would be my focus, starting court on time and making an orderly transition through the cases so that people are not sitting there all day, bored, wanting to leave, looking at everything that's going on except what's going on in front of them. I would try my best to have an orderly courtroom where people would know what time their case is going to be heard and that they would be out by a certain time, which wouldn't be 7 or 8 o'clock at night.
So at the city commissioner's office, you have 3 city commissioners, and it's important that everyone works together. So the first thing, naturally, you want to do the assessment. You also want to look at where, if the department has diversity, and making sure that folk have a pathway to success. You have to look at the city commissioner's office has a lot of temporary help that comes in year round. You want to make sure that human beings have a way of pathway to success, and when you're doing that. Then the next thing I would do would be definitely looking at the training programs, because everybody would have to look at training protocols. Also would look at getting voter education as being one of the top things that we connect with the school systems, making sure that we're looking at voter registration and updates, and definitely advocating with the other legislative officials to assure that we start looking at these outdated codes that have been on the books since 1937. We have to look at that, and we have to look at all of this at once. But the main thing is to set a vision with your other city commissioners. And I think the three points that we're going to have to look at are voter education, voter registration, and that the one that scares everybody, voter participation. But without it, democracy is lost.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And all 3 of you shared how you would, in the first 90 days, what your plans are. The question is, how do you connect with the people?
Communications. What the problem with the sheriff's office now is that most of the people don't even know what the sheriff's office does. So if they don't know, then the sheriff has failed his job, because every citizen should know what the sheriff's office do. And if there are programs, not wait until you're running to now say you did this for 7 years. You have 4 years, you have 5 years, and you need to be able to put that information out. So all the information out, whether it is public service announcement, at different city council places, at different community centers, communicate with the people about what the sheriff's office does. And put it in the schools about what the sheriff's office does. Let it be pamphlet that some students can read up on, or make it a program. Develop an essay on what the sheriff's office does. Start educating folks. However we need to do it, people in this city need to know what the sheriff's office does and what good work the sheriff's office can do. So start communicating a lot better and not spend $1.6 million on advertising, taking people homes, but spend some money on educating people on what good the sheriff's office can do.
Got you. We'll toss it to you, Judge. Go ahead.
I agree in what the sheriff said about the communication piece. As a municipal court judge, I believe I would be able to go out into the schools and speak to the children about what happens in court or when they come to court, what to expect. I was also surprised. I was a coach for a moot court team in Gratz, Simon Gratz High School. And Simon Gratz High School is very interesting. They have a courtroom in their school where they used to have a tribunal when children would misbehave, and they would have their peers. One would act as a prosecutor, defense attorney, and a judge, and they would look into the situation. So I would like to go back into the schools and talk to the children about municipal court.
Well, when I was Chief Deputy City Commissioner, one of the pilot programs that we work with is engagement. We have to get back to doing those big things. The City Commissioner's office is probably the most important office in the city of Philadelphia that no one knows. We have to do a massive marketing campaign. We also have to do marketing that makes sense. Marketing that makes sense is putting the information about the City Commissioner's office in neighborhood papers and doing it throughout, right? Making sure that mock elections are done in every school so that people will get a chance to understand exactly what the City Commissioner's office does. We have an issue right now that most people do not know. On February the 20th, the City Commissioner's office voted to purchase $50 million worth of new voting systems. And if you ask the average person, did they have an opportunity to speak on that? They do not, and that's wrong. So we have to start being more about the people than about what our agenda is.
Thank you for sharing. Keep it here. We're telling it like it is.
Like It Is back, and we're taking final questions from our audience members. This has been a phenomenal discussion.
My question is about voting. The concerns are getting people out to vote, participate, and you guys answered a lot of great questions, and I applaud you for taking the leap out to serve our communities where you're doing. But sometimes people feel like their vote don't matter, and participating is just a joke. One of the biggest things year to year is voter suppression. I guess my question is basically for the Commissioner's office. What are you prepared to do to motivate people or educate them concerning this matter?
Well, first of all, you are absolutely right. In 2012, we had a major fight on our hands with the voter ID law. And in 2012, we were part of that coalition that fought against the voter ID law and subsequently won that battle. Part of it is, and probably all of it, is voter education. So when you're looking at voting, you have to look at it in phases. There's that first phase where we have to do some long-term, from daycare all the way to high school and even in college. Then you have that young group called the millennials, educating them and making sure that they understand that by the time you get to the presidential election, it's already done. Because a lot of times they come out every 4 years for the presidential election. So what we have to do is start with voter education and just expanding. Now, getting people excited, the City Commissioner's office should be the first one doing the countdown. The countdown is just like we celebrated the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. That's how we should be doing elections. We should be sounding the alarm, right? And letting people know all over the city, partnering with different agencies so that we can get mailers out so that maybe our budget can't handle it. And then at the end of the day, we have to do the assessment of each election. And that means that we have to go back to the people with town hall meetings and public hearings in the evening so that people can participate in the process.
If you could give one word, not just about your campaign, but how you would be in the office, just share one word from your experience, what would you be as a commissioner?
I would be out of the office with people.
I would be ensuring families stay in their homes.
I would be caring and compassionate toward the people who appear before me.
This question is to Ms. Brunson. When you become judge, would you be willing not to take the lead, but be willing to talk to your colleagues about children that are already incarcerated, learning about the court system? Because I understand earlier you talked about grants and going into the high schools, but these kids are not in the high schools. They're in places like Vision Quest, Glen Mills. Would you have a conversation with your colleagues about forcing the providers to educate these kids about the courtroom, what's in the courtroom, probation, how to stay off probation? Would you be willing to do that?
I would, because I may be one of the few people running who was a former assistant district attorney, so I served in the juvenile court unit and I saw children going to those placements. And I think it's very important for children to know before they get into the placement what happens or what to expect. And so it's also important for judges who are ruling over cases like that to know exactly where they're sending children when they do sentence them to places like Vision Quest and Glen Mills and things of that nature. And I definitely would be open to being in a conversation with them about that.
Final words from our guest and information on where the voters can find out more about your plan for a better Philadelphia.
On May 21st, I'm asking for your vote. Dennis Lee. You can find me at dennislee2019.com. You can call us at 484-430-1633, or you can email me at citizensfordennislee@gmail.com.
On May the 21st, you have a choice to elect the first woman sheriff in this city ever. And if you want change, I'm the only one that has not worked in the sheriff's office. So change is what I need to do in the sheriff's office. So if you want change, Rochelle Bilal is the person you want to pull that lever for. You can contact me at rochellbilal.com, or you can email me personally at rochelle@rochellbilal.com. But go on my website, you'll read more about me. May the 21st is very important. Let's make the sheriff's office accountable to everyone in the city and not just a few.
Judge?
On May 21st, I will be running for judge of municipal court, a court that is so important to Philadelphia citizens because it's very highly used by a lot of citizens in landlord-tenant court, small claims court, and municipal court whenever the city brings charges against individuals. There's going to be 7 judges selected in this election. And I would hope that all the citizens take the time to look into the backgrounds of the judges or the candidates, to go to a candidates forum, and to ask them questions when you see them in person. It's very important who we put on the bench because unfortunately, some people don't think about that until they're in front of a judge and they have no idea what that person's idea is, philosophy is, or anything about them. So it's very important, and you can find my information at Theresa Brunson for judge.com.
We thank you so much for joining us for Like It Is.
On May 21st, you have the opportunity to help shape how the city is run and operated. Be a part of the change you want to see.
You count, and so does your voice. And get out and vote. And thank you for being a part of the conversation. To watch previous episodes, go to the Like It Is YouTube channel. You can also catch the show every Saturday at 5 p.m. on Comcast channels 66 and 966 and Verizon channels 29 and 30.
Now, from the entire Like It Is crew, our guests, and the studio audience, thank you and have a good day.